Welcome to the Family Brand Show. We're Chris and Melissa Smith of FamilyBrand.com, husband and wife, parents of 5, and we want to help you take back your family and to live life on your terms.
And we know being a family can feel really overwhelming. Parents tell us they feel like they're being pulled in a million different directions. It's so challenging to navigate the uncertainty and all the chaos that's happening in the world right now.
And that's why we want to bring you every single week actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better parent, to become a better spouse, and to build a stronger family. And look, there's never been a better time and a more important time than right now to take back your family. You can define what your family stands for, or the world is going to do it for you. And the world needs strong families now more than ever. And it starts right here with your family.
This episode is for the girls. It reminds me of that Martina McBride song. You might be too young to know the song. I looked it up before I hit record. It came out in 2003. This one's for the girls. And then I actually remember loving that song. And it talks about different ages of girls. And it's just like a girl anthem. Anyway, this one's for the girls. When that song came out, I graduated that year. So 17, 18. And it talks about girls who are 13, girls who are 25, a woman who's 42. And as I was listening to it again before I hit record today, I was like, oh my gosh, I am almost the 42 age in that song. And I remember listening to it thinking 42 was so old. And I'm like a year and a half away from that, which is crazy. So this episode, I feel like I've been saying this a lot lately, but it's true, is unlike any other that I've ever done before. A, because I don't do a ton of solo episodes. And B, I just thought it would be cool to talk about, again, girl stuff, hormones, boob jobs, pelvic floor, just all this stuff that I've experimented with and tried and, have a story to tell about. And I do actually have a crazy story to tell about something. I'll tell that later on. Something that happened to me as it relates to all of this. But I think I'll dive right in. And part of me was like, should I do a whole episode on this? Should I not? But hey, I love hearing other people's experiences and knowing like, oh, maybe I should add something into my life that I haven't considered yet. So I love hearing other people's experiences. And B, I'm like, would I want Ivy, fast forward and she's 42, would I want her to know this? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I would want her to know this. Granted, when she's 42, so much of the research and the world will probably look different as it relates to women's health, but it's good information that I would want other people to know and that I do talk to like my girlfriends about right now. So let's do it. So I thought I would just start with just take you on a journey really of like where I started and things I've again experimented with and where I'm at now. And so I think I'll start like post babies. So I had my last baby when I was 32 and it was my 5th. And so at the end of that kind of 10-year period, this sounds crazy to think about, but at the end of that about 10-year period, because I had my oldest when I was 22, I had been pregnant for, 4 years, had been nursing for 5 years. I didn't feel like I had my kids back to back, but when I break it down like that, I'm like, wow, that's pretty crazy. I almost spent a decade of my life either pregnant or nursing. And so, after I had my last baby, my body had been through a lot. And I don't think that I gave my body enough like grace in that moment because I was, my baby weight that I'd gained didn't come off as easy as it had, 5 babies later in my 30s as it had when I was in my 20s. And I think I remember being really frustrated with that. And looking back now, I'm like, okay, your body was actually going through so much. Having done all of that and produced like 5 beautiful babies. It's crazy. Women's bodies are crazy. So that would be where I would start is like, really think about the miracle of that, what your body's been able to do for you. And I think it's good that I like wanted to continue to improve my health and, I still do that. So what I ended up doing is Chris at the time was working with a lot of naturopathic doctors. This is like a year probably after I had Indy. So this is probably 2017. Naturopathic doctors, functional medicine doctors, just a lot of like really good healthcare practitioners, but particularly those that had a little bit of alternative approach to healing, which is totally aligns with me, which I really loved. And so he had reached out like in to his community and it just said, hey, my wife just wants to be healthier and doesn't really know kind of where to start. And I was healthy enough, but she said, he said she just came off of having these babies and nursing, and she just kind of wants this whole package of like wellness. Like, how do I get back to what I, maybe felt like I had been before? And so I had a lot of great suggestions, and 2 or 3 things in particular that really resonated with me is one woman was like, has she seen a pelvic floor therapist, like a physical therapist who specifically specializes in pelvic floor, like rehab? And I had not. I don't even know if I knew that existed. And you really have to look for someone, as I came to find out. Like technically any physical therapist could tell you that, yeah, they could help you, but you really want to find with someone that specializes in pelvic floor. And so I went to a physical therapist, and they actually assess like your abs and they assess your pelvic floor itself and just tell you like, okay, yeah, this is how much of an ab separation you have, or these are some things to do, or hey, this is the kind of condition that your pelvic floor is actually in. Because honestly, I don't know. I don't look at women's pelvic floors to know, like, is this normal? And then even like assessing my own abs after having all those babies, I'm like, I know it's not like what it used to be, but like, is this okay? Like, is this fine? And honestly, I ended up that everything was pretty good, but she definitely gave me some stuff to work on. And it was so helpful to have someone else objectively tell me like, this is where you're at, this is what we can work on, rather than just me guessing or like buying some random program off of the internet. I really had someone who knew what they were talking about giving me feedback and advice. So I recommend that to any postpartum mom, honestly, is to see a pelvic floor specialist. And then the second thing that was mentioned, in his community is like, has she had her hormones checked out? And so I really hadn't. I'd seen my OB and I'm relatively healthy. And so I didn't even have like really an established primary care doctor. And that's kind of the next direction that they sent me, was just go get your hormones checked out, just see where you're at, which I did. So I went and saw a doctor in Scottsdale. I was living in Gilbert at the time, and someone that had been recommended. And in that kind of workup, they found like, oh, you have, I ended up getting diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder called Hashimoto's. And so, some of my levels were like way off with my thyroid. And that was actually really eye-opening. I had with one of my pregnancies a little bit of like a heads up that something could be going on in my thyroid, but that had been several years prior, and I felt like everything had kind of worked itself out. Anyway, so that was a really big surprise. And so since that time, I'll get into more of that later, like what kind of that looks like for me, but they put me on a medication for my thyroid, and so it creates a lot of inflammation. And then so that led to some research about, reducing toxins like in my environment, really watching my diet, like what is creating inflammation in my body. Did blood work, realizing like, oh, you are very sensitive to gluten. And then again, I've been paying more attention to like the toxins in my makeup, my skincare. There's this really cool app. It's called Yuka, Yuka, that you can just scan a code like at a grocery store, like on the back of a label, and it'll tell you it gives it a score, like on a scale of 0 to 100, 100 being like very clean and 0 being this is terrible for you. And I was so surprised. Like, I feel like I already read labels pretty good, but I was so surprised at how many things I thought were pretty good, or they're marketed as such. That's the crazy thing. They'll be marketed to be like clean, but when you scan it, it's like, oh wow, this has things that are actually not good, like preservatives and whatever else you don't want in it. But maybe that's the other thing too, is I don't know all the things that I shouldn't be taking in my body. So that's why I love the app. It scans the label, tells you, gives it a score, and it tells you exactly what the ingredients are and why those ingredients are bad. So it's such a great education in just like a second. So that's where I started. And so That, again, probably 2017, 2018. And I stayed kind of doing that for a while. I say, again, I take a thyroid medication every day. And I'm always on this continual journey, even now, of like, what am I like trying to put good food in my body, fuel myself well. And I'm not always good at it. I feel like it's this constant, like, getting back on the bandwagon. And sometimes I count macros. I haven't counted macros for a long time though, because I don't love it. And lately I don't feel like, the last few times I've tried it, I don't feel like it is super effective for me, which is frustrating, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Okay. So then shortly thereafter, I started doing CrossFit, which I loved CrossFit at the time. I think that's what really got me into weightlifting again. Because although I had taken weights like in high school or whatever, when I played volleyball, that's what really got me back into weights. And I loved that at the time. And then also at that time, no, it wasn't at that time, it was a little bit later, I realized, okay, I'm done having babies. And again, my body doesn't look like it used to, which is fine. There's something I could do about this. And so at the time, like all of my friends, things were more saggy than they used to be. And all of my friends had like a mommy makeover. And I was like, is this something that I want to do? And to be honest with you, ever since I weaned my first baby at like 23, I realized I wasn't satisfied with the state of my boobs after that. And so I kind of always in the back of my head was like, I'm going to do something about this after I have my last baby. And I think someone gave me that advice actually. They're like, well, if you just wait until after you're done having kids, otherwise it's going to you're going to need a revision for like a breast augmentation. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to have my kids and then I'll revisit this after. And it's so interesting looking back. So that was like in 2018. And I did. I never could have imagined that I would have done that actually. But in 2018, I did have a breast augmentation. And I don't know. It's crazy looking back. It's been, 8 years? All my friends had one at that time. The women that I was hanging out with regularly when I lived in Gilbert. And there's some things that I've loved about it and some things that I'm like, oh, it's like so annoying. It's like so annoying that now I don't think my outcome was exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to be something that like was not noticeable to anyone but maybe me. And I don't think that's the case. And I basically feel like I took something that I was self-conscious about, just like how saggy and deflated I felt like my breasts were after nursing for that long. Took that insecurity and just transferred it to something else. Because now when I go swimming, like say at the public pool, I'm now self-conscious about, are my boobs hanging out? Am I showing too much cleavage? I have to buy, I can't just go to Target usually and buy a swimsuit. It has to be like just the right size and it has to be like, yeah, made for larger chests, which is just so frustrating to me and it's like really annoying. And then, I don't know. But then at other times I'm like, I remember what I was felt back then too. And I'm like, no, I am glad that I did this. But from, the few weeks after I got it done, I told Chris, I'm like, I'm going to get these taken out at some point. I'm kind of a chicken. I don't want to have surgery again because this is the crazy story. I went to go get it done, have my surgery. And when I was coming out of surgery, my blood pressure dropped. Either as I was coming out of surgery or in the recovery, I'm not quite sure. My blood pressure really dropped. And so it was just an outpatient procedure. They gave me, it's been so long, I don't even remember exactly the details, but they gave me medication to bring my blood pressure back up. They feel like I'm stable enough. I go home. They just tell me like, hey, your blood pressure dropped. Make sure you're really hydrating throughout the day. Chris and I were staying, it was around our anniversary. So we had like an Airbnb for a couple of days. We were just staying at the Airbnb and he was taking good care of me. And we stopped by and got some water because I needed to hydrate. So I kept hydrating. He grabbed some food. I came home and I was like so tired, which is normal after anesthesia, right? I was so tired, could barely keep my eyes open. And eventually I kind of woke up a little bit more. Again, still trying to hydrate. I feel like this is so much TMI throughout this whole episode, but I'm just going with it. I was drinking so much, but my body, like, I was not releasing any of it. Like, I was not peeing at all. And I was like, well, I must have just been super dehydrated. And so I just kept drinking. I had some prescriptions I needed to pick up, I believe, later that evening. So it's in the evening now. It's like dinner time. So we're gonna go grab some food together and grab a couple more prescriptions. And while we are out and about, I feel like I'm gonna pass out. But it wasn't like a pass out. It was like I feel like I'm sedated still. And by this time, my surgery was like first thing in the morning. This is like 12 hours later. And I used to work as a nurse, so I do kind of know, like, okay, this should not be happening anymore. Like, there's been enough time that this should be working itself out. So we're in the car in a parking lot in front of I think we're in front of the pharmacy. And I tell Chris, I'm not feeling good. I feel like I'm going to pass out. I think you should. He's like, are you okay? You know, he's kind of scrambling, a little bit nervous because I'm not like overly, how would I say this? It takes a lot for me to be like stressing. And I was a little bit stressing. And I think he was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I was like, no, I think you need to call 911. And so he called 911. We're in the parking lot. The fire truck, ambulance, they come to the car. I'm just like kind of leaning back in the passenger seat, not knowing like what is going on, but knowing something is not right. And to me, I'm like, maybe my blood pressure's dropped again. Maybe my blood pressure's like bottoming out and I'm like dying. I really did that. Thought really did cross my mind. And that's why I'm like, please call 911. And so anyway, they checked my blood pressure. They checked my blood sugar and they're like, you look like everything looks good. But I knew, I was like, I am not well. Like, this is not normal. So they're like, well, we can take you to the emergency room if you want. And I was like, yeah, like, I think you should take me to the emergency room. And maybe this is just me, or maybe it was real. I felt like they were like, okay, I'll take you to the emergency room. This chick, she's like so being a little bit dramatic, but they took me to the emergency room. They checked, like, drew my blood and checked my blood. I was critically low in sodium. It turned out, what we found out, I ended up having to have a nephrologist who specializes in kidneys. He came and worked with me. Basically, because my blood pressure had dropped earlier that morning, my body had basically released a chemical telling the rest of my body, like, hey, this is how he explained it to me. If she gets fluid, you have to hold on to it because your blood pressure is low. Her blood pressure is low. Do not release any fluid. So as I was hydrating through the day, I was basically like diluting all of my electrolytes. So if you've ever heard of someone like an athlete, for example, who overhydrates and just dilutes all their electrolytes and then passes out or whatever happens to them, that's what had happened to me. And so my sodium and other electrolytes were so critically low that they admitted me to the hospital. So I stayed in the hospital overnight and basically they just gave me fluids that had the right electrolytes in them. And he told me, this was like the best news actually. He said, he sent Chris out. He's like, go get like salty chips, like anything salty. And I just needed to consume salt to rebalance my body, which I did. And then they released me the next day and it was fine. But I am a little bit nervous about having another surgery because I'm like, the last one didn't go so well. And, but I think eventually I will because I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like they're not me. They're too big. They've got to go at some point when I get brave enough. And the other thing is I had done a lot of research about breast implant illness. And I was like, well, basically at that point I had already been diagnosed with this Hashimoto's. I was like, I already have this autoimmune thing going on. So, it is what it is. Let's just do it. Which again, I can't believe that I did that. But one thing that I thought was interesting is when I moved to Hawaii a few years later, 3 years later maybe, I noticed that the people I was surrounding myself with it was just a different group of people because I had completely changed my location where I was living. And no one had their boobs done. And again, I was self-conscious because in that moment, I was the only one that had. And I really thought, and I really realized that, if I had been living in Hawaii this whole time, I don't think I would have ever have gotten. Isn't that interesting? So much of what we perceive has to do with the people that we're surrounding ourselves with and the environment that we're surrounding ourselves with. I guess my message here would be like, okay, who are you following on social media? Are you following people on social media that are making you feel like, I need to change my body? Like, my body's not okay. And again, I think it's fine to want to like look better and look your best and feel like, you're getting your body back after you have a baby or whatever. But just really be conscious of that, because it wasn't conscious for me. Like, I was absorbing what I thought I wanted and like the ideal by who I had surrounded myself with, which they're all like my best girlfriends, and nothing against them. It was just like, I don't know if that was the best move for me, but I felt like that was something I needed to do. Okay. Fast forwarding a little bit more. So moved to Hawaii, come back, and I'm getting older. Like, I turned 40 last year. So currently what health journey looks like is I'm approaching perimenopause. And although I don't feel like really I have any symptoms of perimenopause yet, I've noticed like, oh, I want to start following women on social media who have gone before me, who are like aging gracefully and aging well in the way that I would want to, who don't make me feel like you're getting so old. You need to do something about this. You need to look young forever. Because I don't want to look, I want to look young. I want to look vibrant. I want to look healthy. But also, I want to look real. Like, I want to age real. I don't want to be afraid of growing old. It's like a privilege, right? And I know every person has their own ways of growing old, their own ways of being like, okay, this is what I'm going to do to like look my best into my 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. But I want to make sure that there are women that I am following that are not afraid of aging and that are embracing it in their own way, in the way that feels aligned for me. And that's been really fun, actually. There's a lot of research out there about perimenopause and menopause and things you can do to, again, age well and combat some of the effects of aging that I always felt like, oh, that just happens when you get older. Like, you gain weight and your body kind of falls apart and you can't do the things that you used to do. And I'm like, oh, I'm following all these women on social media who are in their 50s and 60s who are kind of debunking that. And it's really fun, actually, to see and to watch and to surround myself with. So some of the things that I've been experimenting with lately are weighted vests. I feel like everyone has a weighted vest right now. I don't know why it's so popular. Maybe there's just been a lot of research about it and it's like the buzz thing right now. So I have a weighted vest that I walk with. And you can I'm not going to go into all the research of why these things are good and all the benefits. It's just more like things that I'm trying. You can do your own research about it if you want to. Weighted vests. I'm doing a lot of sauna. The gym that I go to right now has a sauna, which I've been loving. I actually listened to this awesome podcast episode recently that Mel Robbins did. I can't remember the name of the guest that she had on, but the whole episode was about women's health, and particularly kind of focused on how so much of the health and fitness industry gives recommendations, across the board, but all the research about those recommendations were actually done with men, and how a lot of times recommendations that were given were actually not the best ones for women. A couple examples she shares on this episode being the amount of sauna time, the temperature of a cold plunge. I don't really love cold plunges, and she talks in this episode about how women should be cold plunging at higher temperatures than men. It's actually can be harmful to your body and can send you kind of into this almost like a shock if you cold plunge too cold as a woman. And I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that. So I'll link to that episode because it really is so good. It talks about intermittent fasting and how women are not going to get the same effects from intermittent fasting as men are. And she does not recommend intermittent fasting for women. Just some really fascinating things that I am excited to continue to incorporate as I get older. Also continuing to lift weights and the importance of that for women. Current things I've experimented with my period that I think are worth noting. I've been trying, there's so many things you can try lately, like whether that's Flex Disc or Diva Cups or fill in the blank. What I loved lately are just period underwear. Sometimes I talk to people about this randomly and I can't even think who, just a girlfriend, and they'll say like, but then you have to like rinse it out. And it doesn't bother me at all. And there's some good research about, they call it free bleeding and how it can lead to easier periods and decreased flow over time. And although I can't say like, oh yeah, that's happened for me, it feels like really convenient to not have to buy pads or tampons. And that's what I've gotten for Ivy too. It's been really easy. It's like so easy. So again, you could do your own research. There's a lot of companies now that sell period underwear. There was actually I think last year, some of the companies came out that what they used was, I don't remember the details. Some of the ingredients in some of the period underwear last year were found to be not ideal. And so do your research and make sure you find one that, has all the stuff that you want in it. And it was like a big deal. So it'll be heavily publicized and marketed which ones are the quote unquote good brands to use. But I would totally recommend. I think right now, the ones I have lately that I've really been liking are called Wild Moon. So if you haven't tried those, you might like it. Also, cycle syncing. I'm kind of just dabbling in this right now, but I'm excited to continue to learn more. Basically, the idea is that depending on where you are at in your cycle, your body can be better supported with certain kind of foods, certain kind of movement or exercise, and really leaning into that. And for example, I think I never have taken that approach. I've just been like, on my period, I'm going to do the same thing at the gym that I always do. But I've really been trying to look at it differently and being like, does my body feel like it wants to lift heavy today or does it not? And sometimes it doesn't. It just feels like maybe I'll do like 30 minutes of a yoga video or something instead. And I've really enjoyed taking that approach lately. And then looking that there's certain days that are better for lifting heavy, certain times of your cycle. And then also with cycle syncing, not only at food and movement, but just, again, this is what I'm learning is that certain times of the cycle are better for, in my case, like recording podcast episodes or doing a speaking engagement or, just putting yourself out there in public, and other times are better for like more of the inside work. Inside meaning like the introspection and the journaling and the, work behind the scenes in your business or at your home or whatever. So I'm excited to continue experimenting with that. Currently with my thyroid, like Hashimoto's, so when we moved to where we live now, I established care with a new doctor, and I just got my blood work done again a couple weeks ago, which is maybe why this is on my mind. My antibodies are still super, super high, and so I'm trying to do something about that. So right now we're talking about gut health, and so I'm on this like 10-day gut health journey right now, which I don't love this idea, but decided like, hey, I think it's for the best for right now. Is right now this 10-day thing, I'm like on day 6 today, is a couple rounds of not a couple rounds, but a couple different antibiotics to treat some of the other stuff that I have going on, and healing my gut, like a bunch of supplements to heal my gut, and then see where we go from there. I guess what I'd say along those lines are, if you're going to a doctor and you don't feel like they're understanding what you want, or they're not addressing like your symptoms or how you're feeling, don't feel like you're stuck there. Like there are other options. And I feel like there's so much available to us today, whether that's on social media, to do your initial research. Obviously, you're not going to get prescribed anything over social media, but to do research and to realize like, hey, these are the symptoms I'm feeling. These are the things that I feel like need to be addressed, and taking that to your doctor. And if they don't address it, finding someone else. Like there's other options for you. So if you feel like you're in that place, I encourage you to like take action, take your health into your hands, and realize like, I want to maybe feel better or look better, or have more energy, or whatever it is for you. Like you can do it. And it's a journey. It's such a journey, and you make mistakes, and that's okay. It's like all part of the learning journey. And sometimes you can't learn the lesson unless you like make the mistake or realize go down a path and realize like, oh, that's not the path I actually want to be down. Let me take this other path. But sometimes you don't realize that until you're in movement and you're in motion. And I want to be, so last month, 2 months ago now, in March, at the time of recording, Chris and I hosted a couples retreat in Hawaii. And when I was at the gym at the resort, there was this, I was doing these like step ups onto this box, the program I've been using, which this is worth mentioning. The program I've been using lately is by Brett Contreras. He's called the Glute Guy. And someone had told me about him years ago. And I always really like his stuff because it's just 3 days a week of lifting. And you lift pretty heavy, but I have really liked his stuff. So if you're looking for a new program, I like his program. He doesn't have an app. I wish he had an app, but anyway, I like his stuff. But what was in my program that week was like these really high step ups, like probably almost hip high with weights. And I was doing those, and this guy came over to me, this older gentleman came over to me, and he was like, wow, like those are high step ups. That's very impressive. And I was like, wow, thank you. Like, that's very kind of you. We talked for a minute, and then he went back to his workout. I went back to mine. And then later I noticed him kind of behind me, and he was doing step ups onto kind of a smaller box. He was kind of holding onto he had placed the bar on a rack and was kind of holding onto the bar and then stepping up onto the box. And someone in our group for the couples retreat came over to me, and they're like, he's 81. I was like, oh my gosh, that is crazy. And the step ups are just part of his normal routine. And it was like probably 2 feet high of a step, which is pretty high. And especially after learning like he was 81, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's what I want. Like I want to be in Hawaii when I'm 81, like working out in the gym and lifting weights and stepping up onto this high bar or onto this high kind of platform. And, if he can step up onto this 2 foot high platform, that means he can do hiking and he's like just very active. And so I went over to him and I was like, oh my gosh, look at you. Someone just told me you were 81 and like, look at your step ups. So we had another moment about step ups, and he was just like so friendly and nice. And he was like, yeah, when my grandkids were little, my daughter used to tell me like, quit being so rough with the kids. You're going to hurt the boys. And then he's like, now she tells her sons, cause that was like, 20 years ago? Now she tells her sons, don't be so rough with grandpa. You're going to hurt grandpa. But he's like, I love being active with my grandkids. I love, messing with them. And I was like, that's what I want. Like, I want to be older, 80s, and be able to be active with my grandkids and be able to take care of myself and be able to like live this happy and long and full life. And I realized if I don't start now, if I don't continue on the journey and on the path, I'm not going to be that 81-year-old who's able to do those things. And so that's kind of the vision lately. Of course, I didn't have that man to look at, prior to a couple months ago, but lately that's what I'm thinking. Like, that's what I want. So, and don't we all want that? Like, who doesn't want that? Who wants to not age well? But we've got to start now, like whatever that looks like for us. So here's to your health. Here's to the journey, being on the journey, doing our best. And our journeys are going to look so different. And that's okay. It's like our individual journey of what works for us and what is best for each one of us. So we continue to keep going on the journey because it's worthwhile. I hope you found something useful in this episode. Like I said, it was such a different episode, but I hope that you loved it and take something from it. And then we can all be 81-year-olds out hiking in Hawaii together. Wouldn't that be awesome? Have a great week. Thanks for hanging out with us today on the Family Brand Podcast. But wait, before you go, I want to give you something. It's something I stole out of our Family Brand Academy because I thought it would make a big difference for you, and I want you to have it for free, no strings attached. It's how we run our family meetings, and not just our family meetings that we have every week, but also our family check-ins, which is this system we've developed for how to connect with our kids and each other, Chris and I, every single week. And we've had some great outcomes with this. Not only have we, but a lot of families that have implemented this have as well. Actually, life-changing outcomes, if I'm being honest. You'll definitely want to get this. Go get your copy at familybrand.com/meeting, and we will catch you next time.